First on Latinighter, Jimmy Fallon is set to address Jimmy Kimmel's suspension on The Tonight Show Thursday night, according to attendees at this afternoon's taping. The host opened the show with several jokes about ABC's suspension of Kimmel before turning serious. "To be honest with you all, I don't know what's going on, no one does. But I do know Jimmy Kimmel and he is a decent, funny and loving guy, and I hope he comes back." He then went on to perform a bit with a setup about carrying on with his monologue, just like I normally would, but with the punchlines of his jokes about Donald Trump replaced by an announcer to make them inoffensive. Speaking off-air during an audience Q&A, Fallon said that he had texted with Kimmel last night and that he loves both Kimmel and Colbert, adding, "We need to entertain, and we need people to be happy in this crazy world." With all eyes on Late Night and its hosts, Fallon was a no-show at a promotional event earlier today, with organizers saying he had canceled in light of recent events. Though Fallon is the least political of the current crop of late-night hosts, he has not escaped President Trump's ire. It was just last night that Trump urged NBC to cancel Fallon and Seth Meyers, calling them two total losers. Fallon did not respond directly to Trump's comments during tonight's taping. All of the late-night shows are likely to address the Kimmel news on their shows tonight. As we've reported, Jon Stewart is set to host a rare Thursday night edition of The Daily Show. We also hear that Seth Meyers also devoted a good chunk of his a closer look to free speech and Kimmel. In a notable departure from his typically apolitical and high-energy monologue style, Jimmy Fallon directly addressed the suspension of fellow late-night host Jimmy Kimmel during the taping of The Tonight Show on Thursday, blending personal affection with a surreal comedic bit that underscored the growing unease within the entertainment industry. The move, confirmed by audience members and first reported by Latinighter, marks a significant moment of public solidarity from Late Night's most avowedly non-confrontational host, according to attendees. Fallon opened the show with a series of jokes aimed at ABC's decision to suspend Kimmel, a move that has sent shockwaves through the television community. However, the tone quickly shifted from lighthearted ribbing to genuine sincerity. Pausing his usual comedic cadence, Fallon turned serious, telling the studio audience, "To be honest with you all, I don't know what's going on, no one does. But I do know Jimmy Kimmel and he is a decent, funny and loving guy, and I hope he comes back." This personal endorsement served as a powerful counter-narrative to the political framing of Kimmel's suspension. Where critics have painted the host as a partisan agitator, Fallon, a friend and colleague for decades, centered the conversation on Kimmel's character, appealing to a universal sense of fairness and decency. This humanizing approach is a hallmark of Fallon's brand and, in this context, became a subtle but firm act of defiance. Perhaps the most telling part of his segment was a meticulously crafted satirical bit. In a clear metaphor for the external pressures comedians are facing, Fallon performed his monologue just like I normally would, but with a crucial twist. Every punchline aimed at Donald Trump was replaced by a bland, inoffensive announcement from an off-stage voice. The bit, described as both hilarious and deeply unsettling, visually represented the concept of forced censorship and the absurd lengths to which a performer might have to go to avoid provoking the wrath of political power. It was a sophisticated piece of meta-comedy from a host not typically known for political satire, signaling the gravity of the situation. The backstage sentiment was equally telling. During the show's audience Q&A segment, Fallon spoke off-air about the camaraderie among the hosts, revealing he had texted with Kimmel the previous night. "I love both Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert," he said, adding a mission statement that has perhaps never felt more crucial. "We need to entertain, and we need people to be happy in this crazy world." This statement underscores the delicate tightrope walk late-night hosts now navigate. Their primary role is levity, but they are increasingly operating in a political climate that invades that space. The pressure on Fallon was palpable even before the show taped. In a highly unusual move, he was a no-show at a scheduled promotional event earlier Thursday. Organizers confirmed his cancellation was directly in light of recent events, suggesting his team was intently focused on crafting the right response for that evening's broadcast. This withdrawal from normal publicity duties highlights how all-consuming the Kimmel controversy has become for the entire late-night ecosystem, though often criticized for his avoidance of hard political commentary, especially when compared to peers like Stephen Colbert or Seth Meyers. Fallon has not been spared from the political fray. Just last night, former President Trump took to Truth Social to lambast Fallon and Seth Meyers, labeling them two total losers and demanding NBC cancel their shows. Notably, Fallon did not directly respond to these personal attacks during his monologue, choosing instead to focus his energy on supporting his colleague and the broader principle of creative freedom. Fallon's response is a critical piece in a larger puzzle of unified resistance forming across the late-night landscape. As previously reported, Jon Stewart is hosting a rare Thursday edition of The Daily Show, expected to deploy his signature brand of sharp, absurdist satire in response to the Seth Meyers on Late Night devoted a significant portion of his A Closer Look segment to a sober defense of free speech and a condemnation of the forces behind Kimmel's suspension. Stephen Colbert on The Late Show is also anticipated to address the issue head-on. Together, these actions represent a near unprecedented coordinated stance from a group of hosts who are often in direct ratings competition. The suspension of one has been perceived as a threat to all, galvanizing a community that understands the foundational role of satire and critique in their work. Jimmy Fallon's contribution, a mix of heartfelt personal support and inventive, symbolic comedy, proves that solidarity does not have to be expressed through outright anger. It can be found in a simple declaration of friendship and a clever, shared joke that reminds everyone what is at stake: the ability to tell the joke at all.